Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. For me it's morning today, for you it's afternoon. We will continue on chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita. Today we will conclude this chapter. The chapter we have seen is the culmination of a lot of questions and answers leading to the Viśhwarūp of Lord Krishna, and ultimately Arjun getting completely overwhelmed by that. So we will continue with verse number 45. मैं पहले न देखे हुए आपके इस आश्चर्यमय रूप को देखकर हर्षित हो रहा हूं और मेरा मन भय से भी व्याकुल हो रहा है। इसलिए आप उस अपने चतुर्भुज विष्णु रूप को ही मुझे दिखाइए। हे देवेश, हे जगन्निवास, प्रसन्न होइए। Now this is a very interesting verse. He wanted to see the Viśhwarūp, and when he saw the Viśhwarūp, he was completely overwhelmed. He was also completely scared. Why he was scared and why he was overwhelmed? You see, though he had Divya Chakshu, but that does not mean that he had his mind which was able to digest all that he saw. It was still a human mind and human intellect. So for Arjun, it was not easy to understand that massive form of the Almighty, in which the good and the bad all appeared together. On the one hand, he saw all the peaceful things. On the other hand, he saw death. He saw cruelty. So he was absolutely, taken aback. And now he is so scared. Though he is saying he is very happy, but he is so scared that he doesn't want to see that form anymore. He is requesting the Lord to return to his, normal form with four hands. That is the Viśhvarūp with four hands. So this is the stage where he has arrived. Now, why is so scared? The one is that the mind and the intellect are not able to encompass or understand this whole process which he saw. The second is when you see the future is also frightening, because in the future, when we don't know, when it is unknown, and when it unravels to us slowly, we are able to digest it. But when the future unravels unexpectedly in all its dimensions, it's not easy for us to understand, because we will also see our own future there. Maybe somebody will die at young age, maybe somebody will meet with an accident, maybe somebody will suffer in life, maybe some cruelties will be done against somebody. So all that future which he saw was also one of the reasons for the fear which he is passing through. Apart from the very fact that he was not able to understand the overwhelming form of the Almighty, and he saw the what we call negative side of the Supreme. In our country, it is not a negative side in the real sense, but in our interpretation, the death and all the unpleasant aspects are negative side from in our understanding, and therefore he was very much scared. So this is what he's saying. And now he says, Hey Devesh, Hey Jagannivas, prasann hoiye. So he thought that Supreme was angry with him. He was so much scared of that form that the Lord Krishna, he felt, was angry with him. Though he was not angry, he showed him his, Viśhvarūp at his own request. And it was a great, I would say, grace on the part of the Supreme to do so. But now he is saying prasann hoiye, means he implies that he is absolutely scared of that. and therefore he wants him to return to the normal form. So this is very interesting. You see, when we are unprepared and we cannot unite with the Supreme, then this stage comes because our mind and intellect and the fear of the future, they take over and we become absolutely scared. I was telling you the story of a monk from Mongolia who never saw the ocean, and when he traveled to India, he wanted for he wanted to see the ocean. That was his desire. So I arranged him for that, and then when he saw the ocean, he was absolutely frightened himself. It is a never ending process. All the way up to the horizons, you only see the water and waves, water and the waves. But that was simple part. That was not that complicated. But when you see the whole universe in one, there's a war going on somewhere, there are internal fights somewhere, there's cruelty going on somewhere, there's death going on somewhere, there's a birth at the same time, then there is a celebration of wedding and birthdays, and then there is a matam of the death. All those things happening together can actually consume us completely and overtake our intellect and our mind. So this is what happened to Arjun. Because he could not fully unite, he still remained in the human form, and therefore what he saw was intolerable for him, and therefore he requested the Lord to appear in his normal form. Then verse number 46. मैं वैसे ही आपको मुकुट धारण किए हुए तथा गदा और चक्र हाथ में लिए हुए देखना चाहता हूं, इसलिए हे विश्वरूप, हे सहस्त्र बाहो, आप उसी चतुर्भुज रूप में प्रकट हो जाइए. So this is the same thing he is repeating here, that he cannot, uh, you know, uh, continue to see that universal form because it is very scary. He is completely frightened of that form, and therefore he wants to see the normal, not it's not the normal human form, but this is the form of the Vishnu with four hands, which he wanted to see. He requested him. So this was another request by Arjun to see the Vishnu roop of Krishna, which he had not seen before. He saw only the human form, but now he could see the universal form, and now he requested him to show the Vishnu roop. And Krishna will, of course, oblige him and show him the Vishnu roop. श्री भगवान बोले, हे अर्जुन, अनुग्रह पूर्वक मैंने अपनी योग शक्ति के प्रभाव से ये मेरा परम तेजोमय, सबका आदि और सीमा रहित विराट रूप तुझे दिखलाया है, जिसे तेरे अतिरिक्त किसी और ने पहले नहीं देखा था. Now this is a very profound statement, but also sometimes not fully understood. Now when you see the Virat Roop, there is one thing which is very clear, that the existence decides the path of life. The whole path is decided by niyati, or by the existence. Existence moves in its own way, and we work like a small little toy in the process, or small little tools in the entire process. So the niyati is supreme, and when the niyati is supreme, our existence becomes irrelevant, though it is not completely irrelevant, because without us there can be no Viśhvarūp. All the human forms, all the animal forms, the nature, all put together make the universe. And therefore we have a role to play. But the role is so insignificant that our existence becomes more or less minuscule. And that is not easy for us to digest. Because we all believe that, we are the doer. We do things. I improved this organization. I run my family. I am contributing, to the society. I'm doing good for my village, I'm doing good for my neighborhood. So all those feelings are always there. And when you see this flow of life in the form of this Virat, complete flow of life, in which we are not even like a particle of dust, then it reduces us to a very insignificance level. And that is very important, because the human being never accepts that reality easily. The people who accept it, but easily people do not accept that. We always have that feeling of doer. And this is what he says, that मैंने अपना योग शक्ति के प्रभाव से मेरा परम तेजोमय, सबका आदि और सीमा रहित, this is the origin of origin, cause of all causes, and without any limits, it's absolutely infinite. When you see all this flow from the past, present, and future, they're all together in front of you, then you realize your insignificance. And that is what Arjun realized himself, and he felt that he was nothing. So that is also a jolt. That's also a big, uh, you know, uh, unacceptable reality for normal human person. And that is what happens, that Lord Krishna said that I showed you all this as part of my grace. And the other statement is saying that nobody else has seen this. Now, this statement is, I don't know how to interpret, because there are people who must have seen this. But in the human form, unless you become divine, unless you unite with the Supreme, this form is not visible to anybody else. And this is what Krishna is emphasizing, that in the human form, without uniting with the Supreme, you are the only person to whom I have shown this form, because he gave him the Divya Chaksu, and with Divya Chaksu he was able to see this form. But the person who become one with the Supreme, he himself become part of the Supreme, and therefore he cannot differentiate between the Supreme and himself. It becomes one with him. That is the difference I interpret here. Therefore, since Arjun was in the human form, he was not united with the Supreme totally, and he was given a special, vision to see the Supreme. That is what Lord Krishna is referring, that because nobody else has seen this form excepting you in this particular, situation. Because others, for example, if we talk about other, for example, we talk about Buddha or Mahavir, or we talk about other many saints who have become and united with the Supreme, they may not have seen this form as separate from themselves. Because once you unite, then you become part, like the drop becomes part of the ocean, the river becomes part of the ocean. So river, when it is separate from the ocean, it can see the ocean, but once it becomes ocean itself, it cannot see the ocean. The same thing happened to other people who had attained moksha or nirvana. But in this particular case, Arjun is separate from the Supreme. He has not united with him, and that is why Lord Krishna is saying that I have not shown this form in these particular circumstances to anybody else. So this is very significant. This is a special grace shown to Arjun only, not to anybody else. And of course, this form is absolutely unbelievable form, overwhelming form. It has no limits of any nature. It has no origin. It is the origin of all origins, and therefore it's not easy to understand. Then verse number 48. Hey Arjun, मनुष्य लोक में इस प्रकार विश्व रूप वाला मैं न वेद और यज्ञों के अध्ययन से, न दान से, न क्रियाओं से और न उग्र तपों से ही तेरे अतिरिक्त दूसरे के द्वारा देखा जा सकता हूं. Now this is another very profound statement. He has very elaborately clarified what is said in verse number 47. He has clarified it again, that in this form of human being, even if you acquire full knowledge of the Vedas, if you do all the, tap means you pass through a lot of sufferings to attain the supreme. You donate all your wealth and you do all other activities to attain the supreme. Even then I cannot be seen in this particular form by anybody. Now this again I interpret in the same way, that you can become one with the supreme. In that case you cannot see the form of the supreme separately, because you become one with him and you become completely quiet, contented, peaceful. So that is what happens in case of yoga, yuj. You are one with him. But if you are separate, the supreme is separate, you are separate. In that event you need special vision, you need special intellect to understand, see and understand the supreme. And that is what he's saying, that these things cannot be acquired through the Vedas, through yajna, through donation, dan, and all other tap and other activities. So this is what he's elaborating here, that this is a very special grace which I have shown to you, very special request which he had agreed to Arjuna, to show him the universal form. So this is, I would say, exception which Lord Krishna made only for Arjuna. Now 49. मेरे इस प्रकार के इस विकराल रूप को देखकर तुझको व्याकुलता नहीं होनी चाहिए और मूढ़ भाव भी नहीं होना चाहिए. तू भय रहित और प्रीति युक्त मन वाला होकर उसी मेरे इस शंख चक्र पद्म युक्त चतुर्भुज रूप को फिर देख. So he is saying that he is using the word chahiye, that you should not feel scared after looking at my universal form, because this is a representation of both good and evil in terms of human interpretation of the whole existence, and therefore you should understand that fully. So you should not have that mood bhav. You should not have inability to understand it. So this particular first part of the verse, Lord Krishna is expressing his, I would say, disagreement, or he is explaining to Arjuna that you should not feel scared and you should not have lack of understanding of this particular form of mine, because this is the total representation of the universe. This represents both what we understand good and we understand evil. All that is put together, and therefore you should not feel scared. And that is why he has used these two words, that तुझको व्याकुलता नहीं होनी चाहिए और मूढ़ भाव नहीं होना चाहिए. That you should not be stressed and you should not have lack of understanding of this. So this is a very, very fascinating part of Viśhwarūp, because we may be able to see that form here and there, not in the sense that we are right now in that, no, but in the form of real samadhi. When you attain real samadhi, you become one with the supreme, you are able to see it, but not in this particular form. When the supreme is separate and you are separate, and you are trying to grasp that supreme's form through your mind and intellect. So this is what happened here, and that is why Lord Krishna is explaining to him that you should not have a mood bhav. You should understand, you should have understanding of all that, because you are wise enough, and then you should not feel scared. Now Sanjay comes in between. संजय उवाच, संजय बोले, वासुदेव भगवान ने अर्जुन के प्रति इस प्रकार कहकर फिर वैसे ही अपने चतुर्भुज रूप को दिखाया, और फिर महात्मा श्री कृष्ण ने सौम्य मूर्ति होकर इस भयभीत अर्जुन को धीरज दिया. Now he is actually seeing with his eyes how scared Arjun was. That is why he is saying भयभीत अर्जुन को धीरज दिया. The Arjun was completely scared. Sanjay is a nispaks guy. He is sitting and observing objectively from outside. So he can see the real state of Arjun. And he realized that Arjun was absolutely scared. And when Lord Krishna showed him the Chaturbhuj, the form with 4 hands, the Viśhwarūp in 4 hands, then he was able to feel little bit, quiet. He returned back to his peace, and he became, without fear. His fear disappeared. So here he is using now another, the word which is Mahatma Sri Krishna. Because when he was in the form of the Supreme, he was Brahma. And now he returns back to his other form, then the Sanjay has used Mahatma, the word Mahatma. So this is the difference, the subtle difference in the words which has been used even by Sanjay. Now Sanjay was also I think he was very educated person, and he was very spiritual person. So he could make this subtle difference in the words and explain that in his own words to Dhritarashtra, to whom he was narrating the entire story. Then verse number 51. Arjun again talks now. Arjun uvaच. अर्जुन बोले, हे जनार्दन, आपके इस अति शांत मनुष्य रूप को देखकर मैं स्थिर चित्त हो गया हूं और अपने स्वाभाविक स्थिति को प्राप्त हो गया हूं. Now when he was completely overtaken and he lost his senses, he was not able to understand what was happening, he was confused, he was scared, he was overwhelmed, he was surprised. All that things slowly disappeared when he was able to see Lord Krishna in his form with 4 hands and Viśhwarūp in the form of Lord Vishnu. And then he says, अब मैं स्थिर चित्त हो गया हूँ. My, the chetana, the chit, the form of consciousness, which is the chit is basically the topmost form of human consciousness, which keep fluctuating to some extent with the movement of mind and intellect. So that particular part is called chit, and this is normally the chetana is not subject to any change, but this particular part, the topmost part of the human consciousness, which is impacted by the human thinking, human mind, human intellect, also becomes somewhat fluctuating. And that is what he is saying here, that mera chit, my consciousness, the topmost part of my consciousness has become absolutely quiet. It has acquired its natural form now. It is no longer scared, it is no longer stressful, it is no longer, feeling the what you call instability. So that part is over, and he confirms it that after seeing your Vishnu Roop, I am feeling absolutely normal, I am quiet, I am fine. Then Lord Krishna says again, श्री भगवान उवाच, श्री भगवान बोले, मेरा जो चतुर्भुज रूप तुमने देखा है, ये सुदुर्सु अर्थात इसके दर्शन बड़े दुर्लभ हैं। देवता भी सदा इस रूप के दर्शन की आकांक्षा करते रहते हैं। That form with four hands, the Vishnu Roop, that is also not easy to see. While Krishna has already shown him the universal form and also the Vishnu Roop, he says that even this form which you are seeing me now in the form of four hands in the Vishnu Roop, even this is extremely difficult to see. This all the divine forces have been trying to see this form, but they are not able to see it that easily. So even this form is not easy to understand and to see. जिस प्रकार तुमने मुझको देखा है, इस प्रकार चतुर्भुज रूप वाला मैं न वेदों से, न तप से, न दान से और न यज्ञ से ही देखा जा सकता हूं. Now, this statement, न वेदों से, न तप से, न दान से, न यज्ञ से, this he has said earlier also. This statement fundamentally tells you that by learning the things through Vedas or by getting the knowledge of Vedas or passing through lot of austerities, taps, and donating and doing lot of rituals in terms of religion is not enough. This is what he is reiterating here. That is not enough. You have to bring all those things into practice. You have to transform your own self by doing all that. You can use some of those instruments to transform yourself, but the fundamental thing is that unless you transform yourself by reciting Vedas or by passing through austerities or by donating your wealth or by doing spiritual or religious rituals, you are not able to attain the Supreme. This he has said earlier in different way. Here he has said very clearly now that this is not enough. What is enough is that you have to transform yourself, and he has said that earlier. The two things, he will repeat that in the subsequent verses, that you have to continue to do your duties, because human life is sum total of the actions you perform from your birth till your death. That is human life. You have to do action in the life. Without action, there is no life. And therefore, you should continue to do actions which, according to your own understanding, are desirable and good for everybody. That is one thing. Secondly, you have to not expect result out of your actions. Niskam karma. That is second part. And thirdly, that you have to surrender to the Supreme, that he is the one who will, decide the destiny of the entire universe. It is he who is supreme, and we have to be completely surrendered to the Supreme. So these are the things which he will repeat further down. But this is what he says, that with knowledge of Vedas, with knowledge of, with austerity, with, giving your wealth away and doing these rituals of the religion are not enough. Now, a lot of people go to Himalayas, they abandon their wealth, they abandon their attachment to the family, and then they read about you Vedas, they do the life there is already austere life, because you have to pass through lot of difficulties for maintaining yourself. So all that he says not enough. So all those people who retire to Himalayas, leaving this world, that is not enough. That is what he's saying. He's saying you have to, the things will come further down. So let's go there and see what is enough to transform ourselves. Now verse number 54. परंतु हे परंतप अर्जुन, अनन्य भक्ति के द्वारा इस प्रकार चतुर्भुज रूप वाला मैं प्रत्यक्ष देखने के लिए, तत्व के जानने के लिए और प्रवेश करने के लिए, अर्थात एक ही भाव से प्राप्त होने के लिए शक्य हूं. One thing he has said, ananya bhakti, that all the time think about the supreme, that supreme is regulating. Ananya bhakti does not mean that you sit down in the temple and keep reciting certain rituals or reciting certain religious texts. That is not ananya bhakti. Ananya bhakti means mentally you keep the supreme with you all the time. Whatever you are doing, whatever action you are doing, you should have it in mind that this is all being done because of the desire of the Supreme. The Supreme is regulating my life. And this is what Ananya Bhakti, let me give that example again. A mother has a small child. Now, she has to do the, chores at home. So she has to clean the house, she has to cook, she has to do, other chores at home. While she's doing all that, her mind is constantly with the small child. The child, whatever movement it does, she is not attending the child all the time, but mentally, she is attending the child all the time. Any little movement of the child will draw her attention and she will immediately run there. We have also seen a mother is sleeping in the night with the child. Now, there may be clouds, there may be, lightning, rainfall. The mother will not get up. She will not wake up. But a small movement of the child, very small movement, she will immediately wake up because she is one with him, one with the child. Now that unity with the child is what is Ananya Bhakti. That is what bhakti we have to do with the Supreme. We have that unity with the Supreme, that He is the one who is endowing me all my life, everything which I am consuming, everything which I am doing, my very existence is all because of Him. If we keep that in mind, and if we, remember this constantly, then that is Ananya Bhakti. And that is what he's saying, that once you have that kind of bhakti, you are able to see me, you are able to enter me, you become one with me. He's saying everything there, that you can see all the forms of mine. You can see me in the form of, four hands, Viśhwarūp. You can also understand me from fundamentally, and you can become one with me. All this is possible through Ananya Bhakti. Now, Ananya Bhakti is something which has nothing to do with religious rituals. It is not sitting in the temple and reciting certain religious texts. That is not Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti can be done in wherever you are, in whatever situation you are. You remember the Supreme, you remember His grace, you remember that because of Him you are in this universe, you remember because of Him we are, eating our food, because of Him we have our clothes, because of Him we are able to walk and talk. It is His power which enables us whatever we do in this universe. If we remember this phrase, then we are Ananya Bhakt. Then no doubt about it. In fact, in Keno Upanishad, this is what they start with. They say that, He is the mind of the mind, that you are getting the power of the mind because of him. Because of him you are able to think. Because of him you are able to have intellect. He is eye of the eye. You are able to see because of him. Your eyes have vision because of him. Your ears have hearing power because of him. Eh? Your hands have doing power because of him. All that primary force which we have, it's all because of his power. And that enables us to do whatever we do in this universe. So that is Ananya Bhakti. This is very important to understand. Once we have that, then I think one can attain the Supreme without any problem. Then the last verse. हे अर्जुन, जो पुरुष केवल मेरे ही लिए संपूर्ण कर्मों को करने वाला है, मेरे लिए, मेरे परायण है, मेरा भक्त है, आसक्ति रहित है और संपूर्ण भूत प्राणियों में वैर भाव से रहित है. Now this is the crux of human behavior. That this basically means that we have no ego. Ego is aside completely. सब कर्तव्य कर्म उसके लिए कर रहे हैं. Whatever God tells me, I do. It is His desire that I am doing this. I am Parayan means I am absolutely subordinate to Him. He is the one who decides. Bhakt means you surrender to Him. And Asakti Rahit means that you are not attached to the world. These 4-5 things, and Bhut Pranyo mein Vair Bhav Rahit, that I have no enemies, no friends, I am equal for everyone. Now that kind of feeling can lead us to the Supreme immediately. This verse number 55, the last verse of this chapter, contains the crux how human being can actually attain the Supreme. These two verses, 54 and 55. So if we adopt 54, 55 is already there actually. 55 is basically an elaboration of the 54. Ananya Bhakti means everything is surrendered to Him. He is all the time in your mind. He is the one who is directing you. He is the one who is guiding your life. He is the one who has given you birth. He will decide your death. He will decide your actions. So keeping that in mind, continue to do your best, whatever best you think as per your mind and intellect. Continue to do that, but don't think that you are the doer. Now, if these two things are performed, I think the fundamental lesson of Bhagavad Gita and human behavior are fully understood. So this is how I feel Lord Krishna, even after showing him the universal form, he came back to his fundamental message, which he told to Arjuna in chapter 2 and chapter 3. He came back to that message. So that message is extremely important. The message of surrender to the Supreme, the message of getting rid of ego, the message of keeping Him all the time in your mind, in your thought process, that He is the one who is deciding everything. And He is the one who is directing me to do this, to do that. And that is how we can attain the Supreme without any problem. So with these words, let us conclude the chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita. This is a very special chapter. This kind of chapter you will not find anywhere in any scripture in the world, where you can see the universal form of the Supreme, where you can see the dualities existing in the same place, the birth and the death and the marriage, all the three things in life which are supposed to be very important events in our life: the birth, the marriage, and the death. All three things you see together. You see the present, you see the past, and you see the future. All the Trikal Darsi, you go beyond the time, you transcend the limits of time. You see the past and the future together with the present. All these things are possible only when our thinking process changes and we accept the reality of existence and accept it as it comes. And that is possible only when we surrender to the Supreme Whatever He gives us. If He gives us something painful, we accept it, His grace. If He gives us something pleasant, we accept it as His grace. Everything is His grace, and we do not resist it. We do not suffer because of it. We surrender to Him, and that is the ultimate. I think this is what the chapter 11 tells us, that the Niyati will continue to take its own course. Don't worry about that. The future will come on its own. You continue to do your work. You continue to perform your duties the best you can understand as per your own intellect. So we have to apply our intellect to understand what is best to do, and we continue to do that without bothering up for the results, without thinking of the outcome, and with the spirit of total surrender to the Supreme, that He is directing me to do that. So I think if we can do this, we are in the right path to attain nirvana or moksha and to become totally liberated. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Despite the change in time, you came in a large number, so I'm happy with that, and we will continue to have this session at 6:30 p.m. in the evening for the next 2 months. Thank you for your understanding.